Have you ever noticed how some people seem to accomplish extraordinary things while appearing to do almost nothing at all? They don't rush around frantically. They don't exhaust themselves proving their worth. They simply wait, watch, and strike at precisely the right moment. And suddenly, everything falls into place for them. It's almost infuriating, isn't it? While you're grinding yourself into the ground, they seem to effortlessly glide past you. Now imagine if you mastered this same principle. If instead of constantly grinding and forcing outcomes, you learned the art of strategic restraint, the power of perfect timing, what do you think would happen? That's where the real game begins. When you stop trying to win through sheer effort and start winning through intelligence, the world reveals its hidden patterns. Those who thought they knew how to outwork you realize they never understood the game at all. Niccolò Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Think about this. While everyone else is spinning their wheels in endless activity, burning out in the pursuit of instant results, you're positioning yourself for the one move that matters. The move that makes all their frantic efforts irrelevant. You've been conditioned to believe that more effort equals better results. That working harder, longer, faster will somehow guarantee success. But I'll tell you a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. Most of your efforts are wasted because they're misdirected. You're fighting battles that don't need to be fought, solving problems that will solve themselves, and exhausting your energy on tasks that contribute nothing to your ultimate victory. This video isn't about becoming lazy, it's about becoming lethal. It's about understanding what Jung called the economy of psychic energy, and what Machiavelli understood as the art of strategic patience. Because when you learn to do less, but do it with devastating precision, everything changes. You have been taught to glorify busyness, to wear exhaustion as a badge of honor, to measure your worth by how much you can cram into a single day. But here's what they never told you. 90% of what you do is either irrelevant or counterproductive. Machiavelli observed the courts of Renaissance Italy, where princes rose and fell based on their ability to read the game correctly. The rulers who lasted weren't the ones who fought every battle. They were the ones who understood timing, who knew when to act and, more importantly, when not to act. They conserved their energy for the moments that mattered. But we've lost this wisdom. We react to every email as if it's urgent. We say yes to every opportunity as if scarcity were our default state. This is the behavior of the weak, not the strategic. Carl Jung understood this from a psychological perspective. He spoke of psychic energy as a finite resource that must be carefully guarded. Every time you scatter your attention, you're depleting the very force that could be channeled into something transformational. Do you know what happens to people who do everything? They become indispensable to no one. When you're available for everything, you become associated with nothing of significance. You become the person others call for busy work, not crucial decisions. The most successful people work selectively. They choose their battles with surgical precision. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret." But this doesn't mean constant action. It means decisive action at the right moment after careful observation. One approach leads to burnout and mediocrity. The other leads to mastery and lasting impact. Think about the last time you tried to force something that wasn't ready to happen. How much energy did you waste? Compare that to a moment when timing was perfect, when minimal effort produced maximum results. That's not luck. That's the difference between swimming against the current and learning to read the water. Here's what most people don't realize. The market rewards scarcity, not abundance. When you make yourself constantly available, you create the impression of abundance, and abundant things are cheap. Scarce things are valuable. The executive responding to emails at midnight isn't seen as dedicated. They're seen as someone whose time has no boundaries. This is why Machiavelli emphasized mystery, keeping opponents guessing, never revealing your full hand. When people can predict your responses, they stop respecting your time. You become a commodity, not a strategic asset. The cruel truth is that the busiest people are often the least important. They've confused motion with progress, activity with achievement. They're trapped in the activity trap, the illusion that being busy means being productive. But productivity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. And sometimes, what matters most is doing nothing at all until the right moment reveals itself. If this content is resonating with you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us explore these profound ideas that can transform how we approach success and personal power. Machiavelli didn't just observe political maneuvering. He uncovered a fundamental truth about human nature and power dynamics that extends far beyond the realm of politics. He understood that most people operate from a place of reactive desperation rather than strategic awareness. They respond to circumstances instead of creating them. They dance to rhythms set by others instead of conducting their own symphony. This reactive pattern is what Jung would later identify as living from the ego rather than the self. The ego is concerned with immediate gratification, with being seen, with constant validation through action. But the self operates from deeper intelligence, understanding cycles, timing, and interconnectedness. When you live from the self, you don't need to force outcomes because you can sense when they're ready to emerge naturally. Our culture has developed an addiction to effort. We've been conditioned to believe that if we're not struggling, we're not worthy of success. This is a profound psychological trap that keeps people locked in cycles of unnecessary suffering. Jung called this the martyr complex, the unconscious belief that pain equals virtue. Machiavelli observed this same pattern in politics. Rulers who felt they had to prove their worth through constant warfare, constant displays of power, were the ones who ultimately fell. They exhausted their resources, fighting battles that gained them nothing while their strategic enemies conserved strength for battles that mattered. Most opportunities come to those positioned to receive them, not those frantically chasing them. When you're constantly in motion, constantly reacting, you miss the subtle signals indicating when timing is right for major moves. You're like someone trying to surf while creating waves. The energy you're expending disrupts the natural flow you need to ride. This is why meditation traditions emphasize stillness, not because inaction is inherently valuable, but because clarity emerges from stillness. Strategy emerges from observation. Perfect timing emerges from patience. When constantly busy, you operate from the surface of consciousness, reacting to stimuli rather than perceiving deeper patterns. Jung understood that individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires periods of apparent inactivity. These aren't periods of laziness. They're periods of integration, allowing the unconscious mind to process information and present insights that the conscious mind, with all its frantic planning, could never access. Machiavelli noticed successful leaders had the ability to appear passive while being hyper-aware. They seemed to do little while everything moved according to their deeper intentions. This isn't manipulation. It's alignment with natural forces rather than resistance to them. Our modern world punishes this strategic thinking. We reward the appearance of effort over results. We promote people who look busy over those who think deeply. This creates a culture of exhausted mediocrity masquerading as productivity. The cost is enormous. How many brilliant ideas never emerge because their creators are too busy executing mediocre ones? How many strategic opportunities are missed because people are trapped in tactical thinking? How many relationships fail because people are doing too much instead of being present for what matters? External activity is often a way of avoiding internal clarity. We stay busy to avoid the discomfort of not knowing, the anxiety of uncertainty, the fear that if we stop moving, we might discover we've been moving in the wrong direction all along. Machiavelli understood that uncertainty is not the enemy of strategy. It's the raw material of strategy. The leaders who thrived were those who could remain calm and observant in the face of uncertainty, who could wait for clarity to emerge rather than forcing premature action. They understood that hasty action in unclear situations is often worse than no action at all. But this requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to your own psychology. Instead of using activity to manage anxiety, you learn to use awareness to transform anxiety into intelligence. Instead of filling every moment with tasks to feel important, you create space for insights to emerge. Instead of proving your worth through constant doing, you demonstrate your value through the quality of your attention and the precision of your choices. Most people are terrified of this shift because it means confronting the possibility that they've been running on a hamster wheel, expending enormous energy to go nowhere meaningful. It means admitting that their addiction to busyness might be a sophisticated form of cowardice, a way of avoiding the deeper work of becoming who they're truly meant to be. This is what we'll explore next: how to develop this capacity for strategic patience, how to resist the cultural programming that equates activity with value, and how to position yourself for the kinds of breakthrough moments that make all the previous restraint worthwhile. The path from reactive doing to strategic being requires rewiring your relationship with time, effort, and success itself. This transformation requires what Jung called holding the tension of opposites, being simultaneously relaxed and alert, patient and ready. First, recognize that your addiction to activity is often sophisticated self-sabotage. When constantly busy, you avoid deeper questions. Are you working on the right things? Are you building something meaningful? Or just building? These questions are uncomfortable because they require confronting the possibility that much of what you've been doing is irrelevant to your actual goals. Machiavelli would conduct strategic audits, periods where he'd step back from immediate concerns and analyze the broader game. What were the real power dynamics? Who were the key players? What were the underlying currents that most people were too busy to notice? This analysis is impossible when caught up in daily task grinding. Jung understood this as the difference between conscious and unconscious living. Unconscious living is reactive. You respond to whatever demands are placed on you. Conscious living is creative. You choose responses based on alignment with deeper purposes, authentic values, long-term vision. The first practical step is distinguishing between urgent and important. Most people fail because they've never clarified what's truly important. They react to whatever feels urgent, which means they're constantly at the mercy of other people's priorities. Machiavelli was ruthless about this distinction. He would let urgent but unimportant matters resolve themselves while focusing energy on important but non-urgent strategic positioning. This requires strategic patience, the ability to resist immediate gratification in service of long-term positioning. This isn't procrastination, it's recognizing that timing is often more important than effort. A mediocre idea executed at the perfect moment can be more powerful than a brilliant idea executed at the wrong time. When you stop constantly doing, you'll face what Jung called the encounter with the shadow. All the fears and insecurities that your busyness was helping you avoid. You might discover that your relentless activity was driven by fear of not being enough, fear of missing out, fear of being forgotten. These fears are valuable information, but they can be overwhelming. The key is learning to sit with discomfort without immediately acting to relieve it. This is perhaps the most important skill for strategic thinking. When you can tolerate uncertainty, when you can resist the urge to do something just to feel productive, you create space for genuine insights to emerge. You begin to sense natural rhythms rather than forcing artificial timelines. One powerful practice is strategic silence, periods where you withdraw from constant communication and decision-making to reconnect with deeper intentions. This isn't isolation, It's incubation. Just as seeds need darkness to germinate, breakthrough insights often emerge from periods of apparent inactivity. The resistance you'll face, both internal and external, will be intense. Your conditioning will tell you that you're being irresponsible. Others will interpret your new selectivity as arrogance. They'll try to pull you back into reactive patterns because your strategic patience makes them uncomfortable with their own reactive habits. This is where Machiavelli's insights about power become crucial. He understood that changing your own patterns inevitably changes the dynamics around you. People who were accustomed to your constant availability, your immediate responses, your willingness to take on whatever they didn't want to handle will resist this change. They benefit from your reactive patterns and will, consciously or unconsciously, try to reinstall them. You must develop what Jung called a strong ego, not in the sense of arrogance, but in the sense of clear boundaries and unwavering commitment to your own development. You must be willing to disappoint people who have become accustomed to your overfunctioning. You must be willing to let some opportunities pass if they're not aligned with your strategic priorities. The transformation isn't just about doing less. It's about being more present, more intentional, more aligned with your authentic power. When you stop scattering your energy across 100 minor concerns, you can bring focused attention to the few things that will actually create the changes you want to see in your life. But this level of strategic thinking requires tremendous faith. Faith that the right opportunities will present themselves when you're properly positioned to receive them. Faith that quality of attention matters more than quantity of action. Faith that your value isn't determined by your productivity, but by your capacity to create meaningful change when the time is right. Remember, even Machiavelli himself said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." When you master the art of strategic restraint, you stop performing productivity for others and start creating results that speak for themselves. When you finally learn to win by doing less, something profound shifts in how you relate to the world. First comes the disorientation, the strange feeling of having time and energy you're not immediately spending on reactive tasks. You might feel guilty or anxious about not doing enough, but gradually this space transforms into something precious. Room to breathe, think, and become. In this spaciousness, you notice patterns that were previously invisible. You see how certain conversations always lead nowhere. You recognize how some people only contact you when they need something. You observe how most meetings could be emails, how most problems resolve themselves if you don't interfere. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. Jung called this differentiation, the ability to distinguish between what belongs to you and what belongs to others, between what requires your energy and what doesn't. For the first time, you're not carrying everyone else's urgency as your own emergency. Machiavelli understood that true power isn't about controlling everything. It's about controlling the right things at the right time. When you stop trying to manage every variable, you can focus on the few variables that actually determine outcomes. This shift from diffuse effort to concentrated influence separates leaders from followers. The people around you will notice this change. Those who genuinely care about you will respect your new boundaries and appreciate the quality of attention you bring when you do engage. But others will become frustrated, demanding, even hostile. They'll accuse you of being selfish or irresponsible. These reactions reveal how much they were depending on your overfunctioning to maintain their underfunctioning. Let them be upset. Their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage. When you become selective with your energy, some people will no longer like you as much, but they will respect you more. And respect creates far more sustainable relationships than people-pleasing ever could. In this new space of strategic restraint, you'll discover capabilities you never knew you had. When you're not constantly reacting, you can actually respond thoughtfully, appropriately, powerfully. When you're not always available, your availability becomes valuable. When you don't always have an opinion, people actually want to hear what you think. This is individuation, becoming who you actually are rather than who you think you should be. It's shedding the personas that keep you trapped in reactive patterns and discovering the authentic self that can respond to life from centered strength rather than anxious effort. Opportunities come to you differently now. Instead of chasing every possibility, you become the kind of person that opportunities seek out. Instead of convincing people of your value through constant demonstration, your value becomes self-evident through your presence and selectivity. The most profound change is in your relationship with time itself. Time stops feeling scarce because you're no longer wasting it on the irrelevant. You're present for what's actually happening, which gives you access to the intuitive timing that makes difficult things seem easy. This presence is what Machiavelli called virtù, excellence in the strategic sense, the ability to read situations accurately, to sense when they're ripe for change, to act with precision rather than desperation. This quality emerges naturally when you stop interfering with your own intelligence through constant busyness. By doing less, you accomplish more. By being selective, you become more valuable. By withdrawing from constant reaction, you position yourself to influence the game itself. This is Machiavelli's ultimate insight, that true power comes not from doing everything, but from doing the right things at exactly the right moments. Today, we learned from Niccolò Machiavelli that true power lies not in constant action, but in strategic restraint and perfect timing. We discovered from Carl Jung that psychic energy is finite and must be carefully guarded and consciously directed. Together, these insights reveal that winning by doing less isn't about laziness. It's about intelligence, selectivity, and the courage to live according to deeper principles rather than surface pressures. If these insights sparked a moment of recognition for you, hit the like button to share this wisdom with others who might be trapped in the exhaustion of over-effort. Subscribe to join our community, where we explore profound ideas that transform how we see ourselves and our relationship with success. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't measured by their productivity, but by their capacity to create meaningful change when the time is right. Until we meet again, carry these insights forward, that the wise person does at once what the fool does finally, that your energy is your most precious resource, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all, until the perfect moment reveals itself. Remember, in a world addicted to motion, your strategic stillness is revolutionary. May you find our talks not only educational, but also inspirational, and hopefully, ultimately, transformational. See you next time.